How you doing, folks? My name is Todd Maddox. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about how to hear from God and what that means and what that looks like and what that sounds like. Obviously, right? I'm This is my second video, and yesterday I just kind of made a video that was my previous one. My first one was kind of a broad overview of the kind of things that I'm talking about, hearing from God, what that looks like, what to expect. One of the things that I have always asked people when they begin to talk to me, when I would begin to talk to them about hearing from God, I would say things to them that, like I would say, well, you should ask God to reveal himself to you. You should, and wait on that, you know what I mean? And what to expect when you say those things, you know what I mean? I think so many times what we have is, we're trying to manufacture something, in the sense of we're reading the Bible, we're going to church, we're participating in praise and worship, and all those things are fine. I mean, I don't want to diminish any of those things. What I am trying to convey is that I think there's a much deeper, a much more real relationship that develops if you're willing to listen, and if you're willing to ask, and you're willing to wait, and you're willing to consider this idea that God speaks in ways that maybe seem a little unconventional or maybe a little strange or odd. First of all, I think what happens when you first begin to hear from God, when you first begin to have these spiritual experiences, it seems a little odd. It seems a little. I experienced that. Mine was very dramatic. It was a lot. There was a lot of things going on in my life at that particular time where, and he really overwhelmed me with a numerous amount of spiritual experiences. And so a gentleman that discipled me, I used to run to him and say, "Hey man, this happened." I was super excited about all this stuff and very, very, animated about the way he was saying things to me. And because it was so new and it was so overwhelming. And I really hope that that's your experience too, because it really caused me to listen. And it caused me to consider this idea that, man, the creator of heaven and earth is really talking to me, and that I can have a real relationship. Not, I think so many times we manufacture this relationship through the Bible. In other words, and please don't misunderstand me. What I'm trying to say is that we're taking the written word of God, the 66 books of the Bible, and I love the Bible, and I've studied it, and I have a passion for that, and I really enjoy some of the things that I glean from the scriptures. And so what I did realize is that the Bible is about a bunch of people, okay, in whom God dealt with. And then those people and some of the authors penned those certain circumstances from the book of Genesis all the way through the book of Revelations. You have God speaking to people, God dealing with people, God interacting in people's lives. Basically, God revealing himself to his creation, and he's done that in a way that is very interesting. I think we'll read the Bible and we'll, and I know that I in the past used to read the Bible and we think, man, I wish God would talk to me like that sometimes. You know what I mean? I wish, I want to hear that, I want to understand how God spoke to Abraham, and how God spoke to Moses, and all the great men of the Bible that I admire, and they give me that I can read their stories and find some things that I identify with. And one of the things that I began to realize as God began to speak to me was that I started to read the Bible from the perspective of, now I'm not reading about people whom God dealt with. I am a person whom God is dealing with, and I identified with the Bible in a different way. I identified with it in a way that I was a part of this. That he was talking to me in similar ways that men in the Bible were spoken to, and women in the Bible, and I want to. So I want to touch on a few of those things. My first video, I talked a little bit about dreams, and about visions, and I uh, I have a and I definitely believe that God speaks that way. I had a dream last night, and I, you know what I mean, and I and I know that God is leading me. He's telling me about future things, and He's preparing me for you know those things as they present themselves to me. And so I'm excited about what that is, and I'm excited about where all God plans on taking uh, me in the sense of my personal life and what that means. I don't my whole heart's desire is really to somehow communicate with or communicate this idea of God speaking. And so one of the things I want to talk about today is I want to talk about dreams, dream interpretation, and what exactly you're what exactly some of those dreams might mean. And I have the benefit of have listened to thousands and thousands of dreams over the years of people telling me their dreams and having the dreams and having very prophetic experiences. And people, I've had people try to attach labels to certain things, like the I in the sense of you know being a prophet or whatever. And I don't get hung up on any of that. I'm not I'm not here to ring my own bell. What I really want to do is I want to be able to help somebody else understand and hear from God. And then that way, when that happens, then you and I have something in common. You and I have something in common. And I promise you that what He told me, He will tell you. And so and what I mean by that is He revealed Himself to me. And as He revealed Himself to me, I began to see His name. You know what I mean? In so many different ways. I began to see how He was my provider. You know what I mean? How He was Jehovah Jireh, my provider. He was Jehovah Nisi. He's my banner. He's Jehovah. Um, I went blank. He's he's El Shaddai. He's the Lord God Almighty. He's the one who's able to provide for everything I need in life. And that's just the beginning of it. But what happened to me as a result of listening to these dreams is I began to just delve into them and consider this. No, it wasn't really a matter of me considering the idea that God was speaking to me. I had such a profound experience that I began to. I knew God was talking to me, and I just didn't. Maybe I didn't understand Him at first, but my own affections were involved. I was missing. I was in a place that I shared in my first video where life wasn't exactly easy, and so I had some challenges that I had to overcome, and some life circumstances that I needed to live through. And so I survived all that. I am who I am because of all those things, and I'm not proud of the things that I did that put me in those places. But kind of getting off track here, the one thing that I have to remind myself is that time afforded me the opportunity to cultivate this relationship that I have with God, where I'm able to really understand what He's saying to me, and in a way that is really cool. And my heart's desire is that I could somehow put what's on the inside of me in somebody else. Do you know what I mean? Is what He's done for me, and I'm nobody special. As a matter of fact, I'm probably the least deserving of this than anybody that I know. But thank God, that's His grace and mercy in my life, and I definitely needed it. What I'd like to talk to you about is particular dreams. I'd like to talk to you about I'd like to start off talking about maybe this idea of how to interpret a dream, how to look at things maybe from a different perspective. I always use the analogy of a little boy or a little girl, whatever, and this doesn't really matter. But the idea is there's this child, and this child's in a room, and all the child knows is what's inside the room. That child's been in that room from the time they were born to the time, to this, let's say for 10 years they were in there, you know what I mean? And they didn't even know that the outside of the room exists, is my point. My point, and you took care of the child. There's nothing weird or strange. It's an analogy for me to convey an idea. The idea that I'm trying to convey is that, think about this. This child, all this child knows is what's in that room, what's in that box. I mean, he doesn't even know that the outside of the room exists. Okay, and so he might have all kinds of things inside that room, but it hasn't even dawned on him that the outside of the room exists. Do you know what I mean? And so what I want to begin to talk about is how would you, as an adult or as a person, if you entered into that room in some way, begin to explain to this child what's outside the room? Well, you'd have to use things inside the room to explain what's outside the room, because that's his own point of reference. It's kind of similar. It's kind of like this. Imagine you went to bed tonight and you had this dream, and this dream was of some crazy angelic being that you've never seen, or whatever. It's something that you never really seen anything like that in the natural. But you woke up that morning and said, "Man, I thought I had this crazy dream. I want to share it with you." But what you'd have to, in order to explain this dream, you would have to begin to use the things that are in your point of reference, that are in your room, so to speak, that are in to describe something. It might have been something similar you saw on TV, or something that in a book you read about, or something maybe, but you would have to begin to use what you know to explain something you don't know. So basically what I'm trying to say is that God is doing the exact opposite of that. Really, he's showing us things, okay? And then in order to convey an idea about something outside this room. And it's not necessarily a lot of times the things that are in the room. It's not, we'll want to make it about the things in the room. I hope that makes sense to you. What I'm trying to say is, instead of fixating on that, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, seek those things which are above. You know what I mean? Set your heart on those things above. You know, and I think that's really what Paul was talking about when he wrote that scripture, is because if we're so focused on the room or our world, then we'll miss what God is saying. That was the hardest lesson for me to learn when I first started having all these dreams. I thought the dreams I was having was about that particular thing, or that particular person he was using to convey an idea. I like to think that I've learned over the years how God's spoken to me. 99% of it has always been in hindsight. It's been very. He gave me an opportunity. He gave me this mind that, for some reason, I don't forget dreams. I've had people tell me dreams, and I never really. For some reason, I'm able to hold on to them. I meditate on my dreams. I wake up in the morning and I meditate. And I wake up in the middle of the night and I think about them. I roll them over in my head. I wonder what they mean. I ask God what they mean. I think about the idea. I think about what that could possibly mean, and I try to not attach meanings to things. I try not to say, "Oh, this must be this," or I have affections, and I have, just like all of you, I have problems and life issues that I would like to see resolved, or that I'd like to be, in a better position in life. But what I'm really trying to, and I'll try to make those dreams, I guess is what I'm saying, about that particular thing, whether it be a relationship, or, coming out of one and being heartbroken and wanting that to be repaired. I do all those things. But what I've learned to try to do is to step back from my own desires and look at things from a perspective, from a different perspective. Not the easiest thing to do sometimes. Not the easiest thing to do. I want you to think about this. I want you to think about these people in the Bible. They're just like me and you. They're just like me and you. I think Joseph was probably the first dream interpreter. You see him in the book of Genesis. He was interpreting dreams, and those dreams were coming to pass. And God's used that story a lot in when teaching me things. He Amalek, he gave a dream. Pharaoh, he gave dreams. Daniel, the book of Joel says that in the last days he's going to pour out his spirit, and your young men shall dream dreams and have visions. And so I think that I hope that I can get you to consider this idea that he's speaking to you this way. One of the, and so if you'll just kind of open your heart up to the idea that maybe this is actually true, that this is really true. So what I hope to convey to you is or to intrigue you, or to make you curious, I guess, is really what I want to do, is this idea that he's talking to you. One of the dreams in the Bible I always think about is that seems, it's kind of strange and odd, is he had given the story is in the book of Genesis, and Joseph is in prison, and he's been there 12, 13 years at the time, and he's interpreted the butler and the baker's dream, and those both came to pass. And Pharaoh has a dream, and he has this crazy dream. He has a series of dreams. He has two dreams, really, but he has one particular, and I'm just going to focus on this part, is he sees 7 skinny cows eat 7 fat cows. Now, think about that for a second. Think about if you had that dream. Wouldn't that be weird? That would be weird. I mean, I'd be like, that's strange. That's just odd. What was that? Well, Joseph had been interpreting dreams for a lot of times, and he was brought out of prison to interpret that dream. And the cupbearer had remembered that his dream had been interpreted, and that his dream came, that the baker's dream, that these dreams that he interpreted come to pass, and he was interpreting them correctly. So he brings them out, and this is actually what catapulted Joseph into the number 2 man in Egypt, was the interpretation of this dream. And but it's not so much about this. I want to think about the story as I want to think about what Pharaoh must have thought. That is so odd. That is so weird. But when you see the idea that 7 years of famine were going to eat up 7 years of plenty. So basically the story was there was going to be 7 years of plenty, and then there was going to be a great famine, and 7 years of plenty were going to come in, and they was going to use all those resources from the 7 years of plenty would be dissolved in those 7 years of famine. And so and that came to pass. That happened. And so and the idea that the reason I use that is because I think those are good ideas about. So when you have this dream, you have something strange or odd or different, or you know what I mean. Maybe you had a dream about a frog, or you had a dream about. I mean, I used to dream about. I used to dream about riding a bike all the time. I used to dream about. I was watching a baseball game, and in the stands was somebody that was evil. You know what I mean? He was just evil. And I used to be looking for him in the stands. He's evil. He's evil. And I used to like, what could that possibly mean? What are dreams like that? What could that possibly mean? I heard a dream told the other day about a woman or a man. She was at a party, and all these people were wearing sunglasses, and everybody was jumping in the pool. What could that possibly mean? You know what I mean? What are the? I mean, they're very odd. They're very weird. But it's the reason we think like that is it's similar to like a parable that Jesus Christ talked about when he walked the earth, and he gave us these parables of the sower and the seed and all these things that he was trying to give you an idea. You know, all through the Bible, he's trying to use things in this creation to convey these ideas. You begin to see the wisdom of God too when you begin to understand how he speaks to us. I've had a lot of different types of experiences. Dreams are one of them, I one of the other ones I like to talk about this. I know that God speaks this way, and I know some of this sounds like craziness. You know what I mean? I really get that. I understand how sometimes I hear myself when I'm talking, and I say, this sounds kind of kooky. You know what I mean? I would like to think of, a normally sane human being. That might be up to question. I don't know, but anyways, I was wondering, does anybody, and we've all had that feeling, this feeling, I want to talk about this way, and kind of getting off the track here. Well, one of the other ways that I like to talk about is it's this feeling of deja vu. Okay, I want to kind of explain this to somebody, to somebody. I want to explain this, is that I used to have that a lot at one time, and I was thinking, I still do. It happened to me the other day, actually. Um, and people used to think, like, this idea that deja vu in French simply kind of means been here, done that, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's the idea that the name actually means I've been here, done. It's the French meaning for that. I'm not 100. I know that that's the idea of the meaning of that saying deja vu. Anyway, but really, I want to consider this idea. Think about this for a second. Look, that impression, that feeling, that knowing, that deep kind of knowing feeling, the one that it's kind of like, whoa, it's kind of crazy. It's like, man, I've been here, I've done that. So I want you to think about this. God, we exist in time. Time is linear, right? So sometimes I think God gives us, I know he does. Sometimes he'll give us an impression. That impression is he kind of impresses upon our heart. Okay? He impresses upon our heart and it gives you that feeling of deja vu. Now, what God is saying is that you have to pay attention to whatever's right in front of you at the time. You could be reading a book. You could be watching TV. You could be listening to somebody else speak. It could be whatever the scenario is that's going on in front of you, whatever has your attention at that moment in time, pay attention to that, because when you have that sensation, God is saying, this is me, whatever, and that talks, okay, that speaks. And that's, and you could be asking God a question. You could be, you could be meditating on the most intimate part of your thoughts, those deep, intimate things that you're not really probably sharing with anything, things that you think out and about throughout the day, whether it's worried about a child, or you know what I mean, or it's a relationship issue, or it's a work thing, or it's whatever the scenario is. He wants to deal with those most intimate parts of you. That's what he's dealing with. It's that stuff that's inside you that are the most intimate ideas and thoughts that you have. And I promise you, if you'll begin to examine those things, as you begin to have dreams, you begin to have visions, you begin to have this deja vu experience, you'll start to realize that he is talking to you. One of the things that I used to realize is that I used to have a dream, and my dream, the dream was about my daily activities. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe somebody I was just starting to date, or somebody, or maybe it was a work or whatever. It was just kind of like watching, the idea of just kind of my everyday normal activities. And some people will say, well, that's, that comes from the subconscious. It's because you're just kind of doing something repetitive, or those are things in your thoughts. But I want to challenge you to think about it this way. What about the fact that God knows everything about you? So thinking about it like this, if you ask God to reveal himself to you, and then you begin to have a dream, and that dream is just kind of like your everyday activities, the things that you do, the things that you say, the people you're around, your normal everyday activities. It's just kind of like watching some replay of your life throughout the day, but it's, and most people say, oh, I've just been thinking about it. Or maybe it's something you've been thinking about, worried about, a child, or a relative, or somebody that's ill, or something like that. Some things that are on your heart, you know what I mean, that you're worried about. And you'll say, oh, that's just me, because I'm worried about it. I was thinking about that before I went to bed last night. And I kind of want to smash those ideas, because what I want you to consider is this. The book of Psalms says that God knows your down sitting, he knows your uprising, he understands your thoughts afar off, that he compassed your path about, that he knows everything about you. He's counted the very hairs on your head. He knows your words before you say them. He knows your thoughts before you think them. So what if you ask God to reveal himself to you, and then you begin to have a dream like that? Wouldn't that be more like this? That God says, I see you. I know you're thinking about her. I know you're thinking about him. I know you're concerned about this. And whatever the dream may be, if he simply says, look, I'm here. I'm here. I'm present with you. I'm present with you. Think about it like that. Because that's really what it is. Dreams are from God, folks. There's not dreams from the subconscious. Dreams are from God. I promise you, that sounds like craziness. That sounds like nuts, but I promise you, if you have a dream, it's from God. Somebody will say, oh, they're from Satan. And if you have one that's some demonic activities, it's because God has allowed it in your life. And it still will tell. It will still talk. If you're having some kind of scary nightmare or you know what I mean, if you're having some, I had a woman one time. She told me she used to dream about somebody would come up and was always come up behind her and snatch her through the window and cut her neck. And she, you know what I mean? She was always worried about somebody just trying to break in the house and get to her and stuff like that. And that, you know, those can be very unpleasant dreams. But I want to say this is that, you know, sometimes the things that we're doing in our lives, sometimes the things that we're cause us to think and worry and be concerned about those types of things. You know what I mean? Sometimes, and later on, it was revealed to me this, you know, this particular woman was doing things that really weren't, that were kind of dirty to people and doing things that weren't exactly, you know, she was hurting a lot of people. It's not a, anyways, she was doing things that were very deceitful and ugly. And I'm not here to alienate anybody, but my idea really is that, look, if that's, you know what I mean? And so you can understand why she would have a dream like that, you know, why she would have the dream like that. But it's not really, listen, it's not God's warning her that somebody's going to kill her or somebody's going to sting her. It's an idea that he sees her. He sees her. He loves her. You know what I mean? And her most intimate thoughts, she's worried about things like that. She knows what she's doing to people. So that's unfortunate. I pray for her. I hope she's well today. One of the this idea that I was talking about earlier about deja vu, I want you to think about that. I want you to really focus on that. So if you can remember the last time you had deja vu, think about what you were focusing on, what you were doing, whether you were doing dishes, whatever it was you were doing. I want you to think about what had your attention. Was it something on TV? Was it whatever it was? Think about that for a minute, because I promise you, you'll find God speaking to you in that moment. Okay? I'm going to, over the next few days, come up with a series of just little, 5-10 minute things where I interpret a dream, or I begin to speak about a particular situation that is, to give you better ideas of how God talks and how God speaks in providence, and what faith is, and how faith is the result of God speaking to you. That's the only way you get it. Faith is not something that comes from you. Faith is something that's given to you by God speaking to you. And I hope that some of this has helped. I'm trying to get a little better at this, and hope that I can make some headway, and hope that you understand where I'm coming from. My one hope is that you know that God is in love with you. And that my prayer is that he would give you a dream or a vision or a spiritual experience, or if he already has, that you begin to understand that that's him speaking to you. And that as you begin to reckon upon this reality, that you would begin to be led by the Spirit of God. And it says, these are the sons of God. And so I pray that your eyes be opened, as Paul spoke in Ephesians, that you would begin to know him in the power of his resurrection. Christ is ever at the right hand of God, making intercession for you. And what I mean by that is that he's at the right hand of the Father. He's a faithful high priest. He knows exactly what your condition is. And he's able to overcome that if you're willing to believe that he will reveal himself to you in a way that he can overcome all that. It's not my job to convince you that dreams are from God. But it's my job to give you this idea that maybe, just maybe, spark some curiosity and get you to think and stop. Instead of waking up and going, that was weird, maybe go, well, I wonder what that is. Maybe that dude from YouTube's right. Maybe God is talking to me. So my prayer is that every one of you out there that might watch this video, that you would go to bed tonight and you'd ask God to reveal himself to you. And I hope that somehow through all this, that in the comments down below, that you'll be able to maybe give me a question and send me an email. My email is toddmaddox3@gmail.com. That's toddmaddox3@gmail.com. And I hope to hear from you. I would love to communicate with you and help you understand that God is talking to you, because I know he is. Peace.